Hello guys, welcome to Redditor's Revenge. Here we post amazing revenge stories daily. And if you want more content like this, please do subscribe to the channel and stay tuned with us. Moving on to today's story, in which OP took revenge on his father because he abandoned OP and his mother, leaving them to die alone for some other women. Now story. My life was a difficult one up until recently. When I was around 6 years old, my dad abandoned me and my mother and we never heard from him again. I was too young to understand what was going on, but I understood the ramifications. All of a sudden, my mom and I had to move out of our nice apartment and neighborhood to a new, very bad one. Our neighborhood was dirty and unsafe, with a ton of drug addicts and dealers everywhere. Because of this, I had to go to the nearest public school, which was just as bad. Obviously, this made my childhood a living hell, as I couldn't connect with anybody and just felt lonely all the time. I was too scared to go out most of the time, and my mom made sure that I wouldn't hang out around the neighborhood so as not to turn out like the people there. Even though my childhood was hard and I barely had any friends, it was my teenage years that were really bad. When I was a teenager was when I realized that I desperately needed a father. My mom was amazing, but I had this feeling of something missing so badly. I was going through so much that I wish I could discuss with an older man, and this led to me looking for father figures everywhere, like my teachers and coaches. This led to a wave of depression in my late teens, and it was made worse by my mom getting ill. So I had to take care of her constantly. Because I couldn't leave my mom, I didn't go to college as there were no good schools in our state. I stayed by her side, but I worked for those 3 or 4 years as hard as I could. I wanted to change the way we lived, but I realized there was only so much I could do. I jumped from minimum wage to minimum wage until I finally came across a reputable job at an office building about 4 months ago. I thought this was it, and I would finally be able to turn our lives around, move out of our neighborhood, and do what I wish my dad had done 20 years ago. Despite this, I still felt this deep resentment towards my dad for what he did to us. Every time I talked to my mom about it, she would refuse to comment. Over the years, I kept getting angrier and angrier. I couldn't believe that a man could just up and leave his wife and son and disappear for absolutely no reason. What I did remember of my dad was very little, but I remembered that he was kind enough. I don't know what my mom's experience was, but the way she refused to talk about him was clear enough. However, the day before I was supposed to go to work, I sat down with my mom and she finally explained everything to me. She said that right before Dad left, he developed some serious problems due to a lack of money and stable work. She told me that he was starting to change completely and just wanted us to keep downgrading our lives to keep up with his lack of work and inability to provide. She said that he became angry and violent and took out his anger on her. He swore that he would put me up for adoption and divorce her, but she fought back. All of these problems culminated in him just leaving one day without any notice. I was fueled by rage and I wished that I could meet him again one day so I can get my revenge for all these years of pain. The first couple of months at work were amazing. I was driven and focused, so I got a lot of work done and it was rewarding enough. I made enough friends and it was a very pleasant environment. Lunchtime was my favorite, as I got to hang out with everyone and get to know the different departments. It was an advertising agency, so we had a lot of different people doing different things. 2 months had passed and during lunchtime, I started meeting with this new guy, Rocco. I didn't know his real name, but that's what everyone called him. He worked in another department, but on his first day I was the first person he saw, so we became acquaintances and met during lunchtime to talk every now and then. Rocco was a good 20 years older than me. In his mid-40s, he always had this weird vibe about him, and I was never really comfortable talking to him for more than 20 minutes at a time. You can tell something was wrong with him or that he had seen some stuff. Still, he was nice enough to me to socialize and we got to know some basic stuff about each other. I knew that he was divorced and lives alone now. He struggled to find work for a bit until he found this job, which restarted his life basically. All he knew about me was that I did a few minimum wage jobs before coming here. I thought of him as any other co-worker, but he always seemed to be the first one I saw at lunch. About a month ago, one day, Rocco and I were by the vending machine. I could see that his eyes were red, so I just thought that he hadn't slept enough. He was unusually cranky that day, so anytime I tried to ask if anything was wrong he would shut me down. I tried to ask him what was wrong, but he got aggravated quickly and started a fight. I had no idea what was happening, but he suddenly punched me in the face before people held him back. I asked him what the hell was wrong with him, but he seemed like he wasn't keeping to respond. I assumed that he was drunk or had something going on. Later that day, he got called into our manager's office and got a warning. If he did anything like that again, he would be fired immediately. The next day, I decided to be the bigger man and went to him to apologize or see what the problem was. He told me that he was just having a rough day and that life was being harsh to him. I had no idea what he meant, but he soon started to open up. He told me that he does have a wife and 2 stepkids. He met his wife a short while ago and he decided that they should move in with him and that he would provide for them and keep them safe. However, he realized just how hard that is and told me that he can't handle the responsibility and that he never could. That day, I told him how lack of responsibility led to problems with my dad that I still hadn't gotten over till that day. I didn't get into any details, but I hoped that I had gotten through to him. But I was mistaken. Suddenly, he started telling me all about his personal life. He told me how years ago, he got married to his high school sweetheart that he then started to loathe and wished they had never gotten married. He went into extreme details about how she didn't grow up good looking as she did in high school, and that he lost interest in her very fast, with the only thing keeping him around being a kid they had together. He went into even more details about how he hated his life, wife, and even the kid. He said the kid was dumb and couldn't understand the basic commands. I was absolutely shocked at the stuff he was saying, and how much I related to it, but on the other side, I was curious, so I asked him what he did at the end, and he told me that he got a divorce from his wife and they both went their separate ways. I couldn't help but think of his ex-wife and kid and how they can be just like me and mom now. Suddenly, any ounce of respect I had for him was completely gone, and I saw him exactly how I saw my father. A heartless loser. I couldn't communicate this to him, obviously, but I decided that I wasn't going to interact with him anymore and that he wasn't worth it. The next few days at work were like this, and I barely even took the lunch break. I didn't want to face him, so I don't cause a scene and tell him what I think of people like him. I decided to keep my distance until our company suddenly decided to have a party. At the party, I tried as much as possible to keep my distance from Rocco. I had lost all respect for him, and I didn't want him talking to me. I kept moving around several times until he found me. It seemed like I was the only employee who bothered to talk to him, so he kept talking to me non-stop. I kept trying to make excuses, but I couldn't leave. I thought if he had to talk, then I would get some more information about him. I asked him again about his family, and he told me about the crazy drama between him and his ex-wife. I asked him what was so wrong with her, and it seemed like he just lost interest and wanted to feel free. He told me marriage was so restrictive and he felt like he was stuck in a cage, and it was even worse because there was a kid. I tried to reason with him, but it didn't work. It did seem like he was just a horrible person. Before the party ended, the company took a group picture of all of us. As we were leaving, Rocco offered that we go eat something, but I instantly told him no and that I had to head home quickly. I was hoping that he wouldn't think of us as friends just because we knew some basic info about each other now. I had left mom all day, so I needed to get back quickly to see what she was up to. I got home and spent some time with her. Someone sent the group pic we all took in the office group, so I showed it to my mom. As soon as she looked at the picture, her face went white and she could barely speak. I asked her what was wrong, and she pointed at Rocco and started crying. A part of me suspected what she was about to say, but it still hurt when she said it. Rocco was my dad. She broke down and I kept explaining to her that I had no idea. I didn't want to tell her all the horrible things Rocco said about her and me, so she wouldn't feel any worse. That night, my anger was refueled to crazy degrees and I was committed to destroying Rocco. All that pain of my childhood and teenage years was flowing through me, and I knew that he had to have a horrible ending. Not just because he left us, but for the ridiculous reasons that he did. I couldn't sleep all night, thinking of a plan. I knew that I would get him fired, but it wasn't enough. I needed him to feel that sense of loneliness and isolation that mom and I felt for 20 years. I thought about beating him up or even killing him, but it wouldn't be satisfying. He needed to suffer way worse and for way longer, and killing him would just be too quick. I sat down and laid out my entire plan, and it would all start the next day. I knew that Rocco, or Dad, had extreme anger issues and was very quick-tempered, so I played on that. He had already gotten a warning once for that time he got angry and punched me, so he was very close to going out the door. What made everything very convenient was that he was a big sports and football nut, and anything anyone said about his favorite team was a red line. So, when he was in the bathroom, I planted a ripped football jersey painted "This team sucks" on the back and left it at his desk. As soon as he saw it, he started throwing a fit and shouting. He demanded that he know who put that there until his voice reached management and HR upstairs. I went up to him, acting as if I was trying to calm him down, but it was working. He kept getting angrier and angrier until as soon as I put my hand on his shoulder to calm him down, he punched me in the face again. I didn't like getting punched, but it was better to be me than someone else. Management came down immediately, saw what was happening, and fired him on the spot. I held my jaw in pain, but I was just hiding the fact that I was smiling. On his way out of the office, he kept cussing the whole company. This was just the first step. Now I needed to make sure that he couldn't get any other job. The second step was having him lose his second family, whom I bet he didn't care about, just like he didn't care about us. Rocco had drinking problems, and he had cheating tendencies. I talked to a friend of mine to go and just try to flirt with him a little bit while recording the whole thing to see what his reaction would be, and then tell him that she needed to leave. The goal was to just prove that he'd be willing to cheat on his wife so I can send it to his wife, but things went way worse or way better than I expected. My friend agreed to go and flirt with him in the cafe that he frequents. She had one of those tiny button cameras, and I was sitting way in the back out of sight just to see what happens. She went up to him as he was drinking heavily and started making her moves. It seemed like he wasn't interested at first, probably because he had just lost his job, but she quickly got his attention. She talked to him for a few minutes, and then I called her, so she can pretend that she was picking up an important phone call, and said that she had to leave. He suddenly grabbed her arm and told her that she can't leave, and I was about to leave my seat, but she yanked her arm away, told him to leave her alone, and went outside. He got up and followed her outside, and I was dead worried. I made my way through the back door, so he wouldn't see me behind him. My friend was leaving through this alleyway when he suddenly grabbed her and tried to force himself on her. He was in no state of mind, and she started screaming. I ran to the alley to get her, but a couple of other guys got there first and beat the living hell out of him. I watched as they kicked him down, broke his nose, and one of them gave him a massive kick in the crotch for what he was about to do. I instantly called the police. The police came and took him away. My friend was terrified, so I drove her home and apologized a million times, telling her that I had no idea he would do something like that. It took a while until she finally felt safe enough to sleep and for me to leave. I had exactly what I needed though, and even more. My dad was doing time at the police station, and my friend decided to press charges to put him in prison. First, I went over to his house and saw his wife and two stepkids there. It felt bad doing this to them, but I needed to do it. I told her what was happening and showed her the button cam video. She was horrified and broke down crying. She told her kids to pack their stuff, and just as they were about to leave, her phone rang. It was my dad. Since anyone locked up gets one phone call, he decided to call his wife. She picked up and just kept hearing him talk without replying. She told him to go to hell and was about to hang up, but I grabbed the phone and started talking to him. He didn't know who I was, but I just told him that what goes around comes around, and that he deserves this. As I was on the phone, Dad's wife and stepkids had packed their bags and decided to leave his house. I asked where they were going, but she told me that she never wanted to see him again. I made sure that he heard all of that on the phone, and then I told him that he was going to be alone forever. He kept asking me who I was and why I was doing this, and all I said was that I was an old friend. My friend did press charges and the case went to court. I was there every step of the way and felt amazing when the judge gave him 4 years in prison. That day, I went back to my mom and told her the whole thing. She cried tears of joy and thanked God that she finally got her revenge for all that she did to her. I hadn't seen her this happy in years, but one thread remained loose. He still needed to know who did this to him. After about a month, I visited Dad in prison. He was confused when he saw me but assumed that I was being a friend and going to visit him to check up on him. He sat down, smiled, and told me that he was happy to see a friend. I told him we were no friends and told him that I was his son and that I did all of this to him. His face went white, and he was trying to process this information with anger and hate. I smiled and told him that he put us through hell all these years and that now, he needed to go through that hell. I told him that he deserved every bit of pain he will receive in this prison, and that I'll come to visit just to gloat every other month and tell him how amazing life is on the outside. Upon hearing all of that, I saw him shed a tear. I told him that it's too late for tears and that if and when he gets out, I'll make sure he doesn't get a moment of happiness. I told him that after the 4 years, he still owes me 16 years of pain to make up for the 20. I left him there alone and miserable. Now here is the end of our today's video. I hope you enjoyed my content. And in my opinion, OP's dad is one of the worst dads I had ever heard about. This guy is ruining people's lives just for his fun and enjoyment, and still, he didn't feel it. So OP did a great job by destroying him and putting him behind the bars. Guys, let me know your opinion about this story in the comments section, since I love reading your opinion. So before leaving, please hit the like button and do subscribe to the channel to stay tuned with us for more awesome stories.